Kathy, go ahead.
Welcome everyone to Textiles and Tea with the Handweavers Guild of America. My name is Kathy Group. I'm the Advertising Marketing Manager, and I'll be your host today. Today's sponsor, we are so excited to have the Weavers Guild of Boston. They are celebrating 100 years of being a great guild. If you want to learn more about them, go to their website, theweaversguildofboston.org. As always, we'll take questions at the last 15 minutes of the program today. Please put your questions in the Q&A and not in the chat. We love your comments in the chat. Keep those coming, but I can't see the questions unless they're in the Q&A. Today, we have Robyn Spady. Robyn was introduced to hand weaving as a baby with her hand-woven baby blanket woven by her great-grandmother. Inspired by her blankie, she learned to weave at a young age and has been weaving for over 50 years. She completed HGA's Certificate of Excellence in Hand Weaving in 2004 with a specialized study in Loom-controlled Stitched Double Cloth. Robyn loves coming up with new ideas to create fabric and transforms it into something new and exciting. She is committed to turning the weaving community onto double-face fabrics, four-shaft weaves, uncommon and advanced weave structures, and passementerie techniques. Robyn is also the founder and editor of Heddlecraft magazine. Welcome, Robyn. It's great to have you here.
Hold on. It's great to be here. We can do all the rehearsals we want. It's getting the technology to work when we want it to. It's so much fun.
Yes, well, it's been that kind of a technology day already.
Yes.
Well, let's start off with the tough question.
Okay.
What is your favorite tea?
Well, I like all sorts of tea, but one that I think many may be unaware of is called blueberry tea. It's a cocktail. Made with tea, and you brew your cup as regular black tea, Earl Grey, orange pekoe, or whatever, and you add to it an ounce of Grand Marnier and an ounce of amaretto, and it's berries, and it's a great cocktail to have after drink on a really cold, wet winter night. So it's a cocktail made from tea.
I may have to try that. It's a yucky, wet, cold day here, so I may have to try that.
Yeah, it's great for that.
Let's start off with, would you share with anyone how you got started? I read some in your bio, but how did you get started in weaving?
I got started, my great-grandmother was a weaver, but she died before I was 2 years old. And she did weave my baby blanket, but when she died, my father inherited all of her weaving equipment, her loom, her bobbin winder, her shuttles and everything. And the loom was in the garage, and my brothers and I, it was folded up and covered. And my brothers and I would go over and peek under it and like we were getting away with something. And then in 1969, I went to summer camp at Camp Namanu, which is outside of Portland, Oregon, where I grew up. And it's near the base of Mount Hood. It's a campfire camp, and different age groups have different programs to pick from to participate in during the week. And my age group in 1969, one of the programs you could pick from was weaving. So I thought they were going to give us a piece of cardboard with notches in it and string it up with like Red Heart acrylic yarn. And we walked in, and it was 4-shaft floor looms that were set up to weave tea towels. So we wove tea towels that week.
Wow.
And I went home, and it was fortunately the same loom that was in my parents' garage. And I kind of fumbled around. I had a copy of Marguerite Davison's book and figured things out. And then a few years later, when I went to high school, we had an art room at the high school I went to, Wilson High School in Portland, Oregon. It was a public school. And we had 15 floor looms in one of our art rooms. So we had this very robust fiber arts program. And that, I think, was my salvation during high school, which I think is a very tough time for many people. So I spent the first year doing the prerequisite fiber arts courses, which was learning to spin and all that, and then getting on a loom. And then I spent my sophomore, junior, and senior year as the weaving teaching assistant. And it's kind of, you know, all been great ever since.
You were surrounded. It was meant to be.
It's one of the things that I think it's important about weaving is making it accessible to learn how. And I think that was something that I was so blessed with. I didn't at the time. You know, when you're growing up, everything that's good in your life, you think everybody has, and everything that's bad, it's like, oh, it's just me. So this was something that I thought everybody had an art room in their high school that had 15 floor looms in it. And I didn't realize how remarkable that was. But yeah, I was very blessed about how accessible it was, how vibrant the weaving community was in Portland, Oregon. And then in 1989, I moved to Seattle, which is also another very active weaving organization, weaving area.
It is. It is. Well, one of the things I've heard you say is that you're fascinated by the infinite possibilities of threads crossing and love coming up with new ideas to create fabric and transform it into something that's never existed before. And that's such an interesting view of weaving. Would you talk more about this, especially the part about never exist before?
You know, for me, it's never existed before. For whom? There are a couple of times I thought I invented a weave. Twice I thought I invented a new weave, only to find out that it had been invented over 100 years ago. But I love knowing that I can take a weave and I can apply maybe new yarns to it or a new twist to it and create something where you haven't seen maybe that interpretation before. And it's taking weaving sort of to that next level, that here's traditional, but let's sort of shake up the snow globe and let's color outside the lines and see where we can do it. And let's maybe break the rules and see new horizons in what we're weaving. Just because somebody says you can't do that, it's like, oh, well, I'm going to try. Because I think one of the things that has come from a lot of my weaving is people saying you can't do it. You know, you can't do 2-block double weave on 4 shafts. And you're like, yeah, you can. So whether it has never, ever existed before, maybe a far stretch. Knowing that it's something that maybe has rarely been seen, or we're dusting the dust off of something that hasn't really been visible for a while. And that's one thing I've been working on, is finding some things that are over 100 years old that we haven't seen for a long time.
Oh, that's true. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So you teach a lot. You teach a variety of topics. And sometimes you teach about color and sometimes you teach about structure. So if you had to choose, which is you think is closer to your heart, structure or color?
Probably structure. And part of it is breaking that down. What I do now, so here are a couple of slides. To the right is a parallel M&W twill threading woven with a network drafted treadling sequence. So this is kind of taking different approaches to drafting and treating them like tinker toys. And let's do something different in the threading and different in the treadling. On the right is, I love rainbows. I just think they're kind of happy. And this was playing with different colors. There's 24 different colors in there in addition to the black. And the thing about color, I think a lot of people teach the theory. I don't think many people teach the pragmatic strategy for, well, you have all these colors. What do you do next? As opposed to, here's red and green and they're complementary. okay. So I just find that some of the things that I've done that have helped me can be shared with others.
That's true about color. It's one thing to take the infamous color wheel and study that. It's another thing to put them together.
And the color wheel is really important, but nobody really talks about why it's important for organizing different colors. Not just here are the compliments that if you weave them in plain weave, you might get mud, but it's you're working on a strategy and how do you move colors around the color wheel so that you're avoiding mud or that you're getting the best of the colors that you're working with.
You also teach network drafting. You've already mentioned that a couple times, which is not the easiest thing to teach or to learn.
Mhm.
Why take on the challenge of such a difficult topic, either to teach it or to learn it?
I think one of the reasons I started teaching it was people were so bewildered, and I thought it's not difficult. It's just that if you've been weaving a long time, you almost have to step back and act like you've never woven before, because it's a completely different lens that you're looking at. I have found people that have woven maybe one scarf in their life and they've been weaving less than a year that take to it much more easily. I also find that people tend to start at step like 3, and you really need to go back and say, let's start at step 1 and go forward. And without the first introductory steps and then breaking it down into a logical progression, I think it's very easy to get lost. So I think it's actually fairly simple. At Convergence in Reno in 2018, I was doing a 3-hour seminar, super seminar on network drafting. And my assistant was my husband, who has never woven a pick in his life. And I showed him how to do network drafting in about 20 minutes, sitting in the cab of our motorhome, so that I had somebody else that could come and help. And so for somebody that's never woven before and can pick up network drafting that quickly and understand it, I was kind of proud of myself.
As you should be, as you should be. And I have to do a disclaimer here. I have taken, actually, I wasn't even in a network drafting class with you. It was something completely different. And you just said, somebody asked you about it, you said, oh, well, let me show you.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, I might as well go get a drink of water or something, because I'm never going to get this. And you explained it so beautifully. And I was kind of like, wow, I get that. And I am not one of these people that gets the complicated stuff. So
Mhm.
for all of you who want to do network drafting, go take Robyn's class. If I can figure it out from Robyn, anybody can figure it out.
And I am teaching it at Convergence in July. So
There you go. There you go.
Mhm.
Robyn is teaching a lot at Convergence, and it's because she's such a great teacher. So you all check out these classes. You're also an author as well as a teacher. And you have the book, Weaving Innovations, and you wrote this along with Nancy Tracy and Marjorie Fiddler. Would you talk a little bit about William Bateman? That's who this book is about. And what was it about him and his work that you wanted to write a book related to that?
Dr. William Bateman was a chemistry professor and retired relatively young. He retired in, I believe, his mid-50s and started weaving. And the reason that the book came to be, I was a member of the Seattle Weavers Guild at the time, and they own his personal collection, which is nearly 1,500 samples. And that's all he wove. He only wove samples. And what he really did, the weaves that he is known for developing, he took weaves we already had and took them like a snow globe and shook them up and put the pieces back in different orders and then added pieces. And he did some things that, if you understand the origin of the weave, his weave makes more sense. But it started with a little bit of frustration on my part when I had been a member of the Seattle Weavers Guild for 13 years. And I frequently heard people saying, somebody should do something with the collection. And finally, in August of 2012, I got frustrated with, there's nobody in our guild named somebody or someone. Let me see if I can find somebody that can help give us a scope, because 1,500, almost 1,500 samples was such an ominous task, and the majority of which are not very exciting. So I ended up working with Nancy Schiffer at Schiffer Publishing, and at one point in a conversation said, I'm just trying to get a scope because there's some really wonderful weaving innovations that he came up with. And she said, I think that's your scope. And that was sort of the beginning. So we pulled 169 samples with the idea of whittling it down to 100, and we whittled it down to 160. But it really turned out to be a wonderful representation of his work and his weaves. I'm hoping that it inspires other people to look at weaves, the blocks that make up weaves, treat them like a snow globe, shake them up, and let me put them back together in a different way, come up with rules, extend them, modify them, blend them together. So it helped me develop a real appreciation for his thinking and what he was trying to do.
Yeah, I encourage you all to take a look at this book. Now, Schiffer will be at Convergence. And if you want to get your book there, and I'm sure Robyn would be excited to sign up for you. And it'll go along with the class that you take from her there. The other thing another plug I want to put in here is that you can borrow the samples that HGA has of Bateman. We don't have the collection that you all have, but and it's a wonderful guild event to have those books. It's one of the nice things of having it in the office for a while, was like you said, to look at those samples and see what he came up with is amazing. So if you're an affiliate guild, look into renting that from HGA and having it part of your guild class. I think you'll get excited about Bateman too, like Robyn is.
Well, and just Bateman, but also the possibility of this is how he did what he did. How about because I would love to do a workshop sometime on build your own block, so that here's a weave I love, but now how do I take it to the next level and shake it up and put it back together and add to it and enhance it and make something new? Oh,
that sounds amazing. That sounds amazing. This next question is that you really are a respected teacher. You have a gift to teach the toughest stuff.
Thank you.
So as a instructor, what do you think is the biggest and one of the toughest things for a new weaver to learn?
I think to learn or understand is, what does the student need? What does the class participant need? Sometimes I think people that are teaching make it about them, and they don't make it about the people that are there to learn. And I think some of it is really difficult in trying to put yourself back in that position when you said, gee, I'm trying to learn double weave. And then all of a sudden, years later, you're teaching double weave, trying to remember what it was like when you were trying to learn about it. And so I think it's trying to really put yourself in the student or the participant's position and level of understanding, and then also set the ego aside, because if a student is looking at you like, I'm not getting it, they're not getting it. It doesn't mean that you kind of shrug it off and go, well, I don't know what to tell you. And so use that as an opportunity to come up with better ways of explaining things. If a student comes up and says, you know, the way I wrap my head around it is this way. It gives you one more option for how to explain it. And this comes in with especially some of the double weaves that are out there, that listen to the students, attenuate to them, and you'll be a better teacher.
That's true. One of the first books that you wrote that I'm aware of was the book on passementerie. And what drew you to, we've got two of those books here. What drew you to that art? Because it really feels like an art.
The first one, Handwoven Decorative Trim, which is on the right side, an introduction to weaving passementerie trim, started with a small group of us doing a set of samples on inkle looms. And none of us had woven on an inkle loom before. And after, I'd been weaving for 30 years by that time. And after weaving on an inkle loom for 20 minutes, I was hooked. It was like, wow, there's some very powerful things you can do on this Then I started looking at, a lot of interior trim is on a warp face plain weave. So I started down that path, published this little monograph called Handwoven Decorative Trim. And once that came out, people in the sewing world were asking me, what does this have to do with the trim that you would find on like a Chanel style jacket? So I started going down that path and looking at couture clothing and looking at the trim, most of it being Chanel, and finding, wow, anything goes. And so looking at the cord and the braids and just the different ways they're doing different things. So that was these first two monographs that I did in Handwoven Decorative Trim came out in 2009, and Make Your Own Cord and Trim, I think, came out 2 years later.
One of you also are listed as a self-taught weaver. Would you see yourself as a self-taught weaver?
I'm self-taught on a number of things. I'm a voracious reader, and I think I have a really good knack for figuring things out slowly but surely. I'm also really, I have benefited from the people that came before me that laid the pathwork. And so I feel like I stand on the shoulders of giants that took time to explain something and then went on the journey with me as I tried to maybe take it to the next step. So to say self-taught, yes, some things, mostly because what was out there, I didn't think was maybe well written or well presented. And then there are those things that you just think, oh my gosh, God bless the weaving world for some of the people we have that we've been gifted with that teach so wonderfully.
Yeah, I see you as someone who's kind of like hungry for knowledge, that you want to explore more and see where you would take it next and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Would you introduce Heddlecraft for those who don't know it, if they live in a cave or something? Would you introduce Heddlecraft and tell us how that came about? Because this is kind of cutting edge. I love this.
Yeah. Heddlecraft is a digital weaving magazine that I started in January of 2016. So I've been going at it for over 6 years. I've published 34 issues so far. Each issue is focused on a particular topic. And there's a number of things. First, digital format allows me to do some things that you can't do in print, such as include links, but I could also make an article the length it needs to be. I've had some invited authors. I have more coming up. And so there's a real relief when you're writing an article and you're not having to cut it down to 2 pages or something like that. And I thought we needed, first I was playing what I thought was kind of like Mother May I, for any weaving publication that was already out there about, can I do an article on this? Can I do an article on that? And some of it was, well, that doesn't really fit with our issue. Or something. Okay. So I thought, well, you know what? I want to do something. I mean, I've been around weaving for over 50 years. And I just remember so many of the weaving publications that, even though they might have been typed or something, that were some, concentrated little nugget. And I thought, I want to do this. I want to use this as a way of teaching beyond the classes and provide some resources for people that might be interested in learning more. So it started. I also felt that with weaving publications that were in publication at that point, at least in the United States, that we had a void between Handwoven and Complex Weavers Journal. And I thought I really was trying to create something that I thought might be complementary to those publications.
Well, I know everybody's going to ask, can you tell people how to sign up for Heddlecraft?
You can go to the Heddlecraft website, which is heddlecraft.com. Unfortunately, of course, today is the day that there is a glitch with the homepage. Couldn't believe that it had to happen today of all days. But you can go out, you can buy individual issues. An individual issue is $4.50. You also get the WIF files for the samples that are in the issue. So if you use weaving software, that's all there. And I've been publishing roughly 6 issues a year. I'm a little behind because of COVID and some family crises. My younger son had cancer. My older son suffered a stroke. And so working on trying to get my feet back underneath me. But each one has a concentrated theme. And so like the most recent issue is Crackle. The next one I'm doing is on color. And it's trying to take a deep dive down the rabbit hole on that topic. So it's something that I think I would have really have enjoyed when I was trying to tackle some of these topics. And the beauty of the digital format is I can make the articles again as long as they need to be.
That's true. That's true. And I'm sure our editor of Shuttle Spindle Die Pot, Sally Organ, would agree with you that immensely, is that is nice. And the WIFs, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That you can just download it. Oh.
And the WIFs were a suggestion by somebody when I released the very first issue. And I think some of it, there was sort of this impetus back when I was a technical editor for Handwoven magazine. And I was given an article, and the article was 12 pages long. And I think it even needs to be longer. And I was given the article and was told to edit it down to 2 pages.
Oh, that hurts.
And there's so many things that got left on the cutting room floor. So it was, some of these things need to be longer. And it's one of the issues with print, because like with Handwoven, if they did longer articles, then they have fewer articles. So I thought, well, why can't we leverage, digital technology? Assign Mitchell had started off with Weavesing. And so that was kind of where it started.
Now, how long did you start that before COVID? Was that a couple of years?
4 years.
Was it that long? Wow.
Yeah. The first issue came out in January of 2016, and COVID.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, 4 years later.
All right.
Mhm.
I know that I really enjoyed it during shutdown of, okay, I'm going to just do my own mini class in my brain with this magazine. I can do this. So, we had talked some about this also when we did our rehearsal, but what do you think it takes for someone to move from, for lack of a better term, a hobbyist to a more serious weaver?
And I remember when we talked about this, because I know some very serious hobby weavers. These are the people that will submit garments to the fashion show for conversions, or put themselves on the line displaying their work. And so I kind of look at this as, are you doing this because it feeds your soul, or are you doing this because you want to make money at it? If you want to go professionally, I mean, this feeds my soul and I can make money at it too. But if your dream is trying to become a professional weaver, and I think there's a lot of opportunity out there, you need to be willing to first work really hard. Do you have a life that it's going to allow it? It might work for you, but do you have family that counts on you? Do you have kids? Do you have a husband that needs regular care and feeding? Do you have in-laws, parents, anything like that going on that they may not understand? And then the other thing is, because the commitment to start is huge, you also need to give yourself, I usually tell people, about 5 years before you really start seeing the positive impact, seeing things pay off. And then, do you like it? I mean, it's when you've made something, you put your heart and soul into something. And back in the days when I was still making and selling, and you would end up with somebody just kind of coming along like the sale table of sweaters at Macy's, and they're just kind of casting things off. And it's hard to look at that, and it kind of zaps a lot of the fun out of it. But I think it's something that there is a lot of opportunity if people are up to the challenge.
Well, one thing I've heard people and who have thought about going into fiber arts as more than just a hobby, is there's the debate of you need to focus in just on one, like weave structure or one thing. And then the other debate is no, you need to know everything there is to know, or as much as you can know, to really do a good job. What do you think about those two extremes?
Well, I think you need to pick something that you really want to do, because I've had people that say, I've dreamed of quitting my job and making a living as a weaver. And I say, weaving what? And they're like, whatever. And so if you want to do rugs, you really need to know that you love doing rugs. If you want to do scarves, you need to know, because scarves are one of the last things I weave. That's a lot of warp to weave, so I might as well do something wider and do yardage. But there are times of diversifying, and I think one of the best artists out there is Michael Roady. You had him on, I think, last year on Textiles and Tea. And Michael Roady is a tapestry / rug weaver, but I was at a museum in Washington, D.C., and he had these little pins that were hand woven silk that not only is it something I could afford, I could run around wearing it. And he's also done the small Wedgwood pieces. So that diversity, you hit a different price point. When I was making and selling and doing garments and things, not everybody can afford the $600 vest or jacket, but I found a huge amount of opportunity in jewelry, sort of repurposing my leftover yarns and thrums into jewelry. And like I was telling my husband the other night, I never had anyone put on a pair of earrings and go, do these make me look fat? And, you know, which is true, because trying to do garments, I think people think garments and rugs are what you need to be doing. It's like, no, I can do 6 to 10 pair of earrings in an hour, selling them for $20 to $40 a piece. And the margin is much better, the cost of getting started. And I had one woman that I taught who lived in Houston that said she was making a really good supplemental income in retirement, and all she needed was a TV tray. So we're not talking about, you know, a huge investment to get started, or a big investment. And, you know, I had one woman buy 1 pair of earrings and a week later ended up buying 10 because she wanted to do gifts for her friends and and sisters for Christmas. So,
Oh, that was wonderful.
But yeah, there's opportunity. It's what are people interested in? One of the biggest areas that I see is interiors, but you need to know about interior fabric, and you need to develop relationships with interior designers, and they can be somewhat unforgiving if you don't meet deadlines, because they have clients that are meeting deadlines. So, you know, when you look at people like Margot Selby, who has done just an incredible job of establishing herself and as an interiors textile artist, you know, that wasn't something that happened overnight. So it's really impressive and exciting to see people that are doing it.
Well, I would think a lot of your time is spent at the loom, preparing for teaching, samples for your book or your magazine. So when you get a chance to just weave for you, what is it you want to weave? What do you want to do?
Dish towels and yardage for the most part. I love doing dish towels just because I use them. They're functional. I can change my mind about color, texture, pattern, or something every yard. And you can get away doing things with a dish towel that you might not be able to do for something that you would think about wearing later on. But I also love the yardage because I love being able to look at something that I can maybe wear later. So.
Yeah, here's a piece that you did that's just amazing. What is this? What's the weave structure here?
It's a double weave. It's an integrated double weave called overshot pattern double weave. That is 4 shafts. It starts.
Really?
Yeah, that is 4 shafts. There's no float on either side. It is a plain weave surface. It's an integrated double weave where the warp ends take turns weaving on the top and the bottom. And overshot pattern double weave is known as a lot of different things. It's known as complementary plain weave. It's known as double-faced plain weave overshot. It has about 5 or 6 different names. And when Jennifer Moore was working on her double weave book, I was staying at her house, and because we probably teach it more than anybody, I thought, you know, we ought to at least be in sync with what we call it. But I'm fascinated that when people talk about complex weaves, I think this is one of the most complex weaves around, not because it's hard to understand, but that you pull out so much of patterning and no floats and all this on 4 shafts. I'm kind of a 4 shaft fanatic. If I can get it down to 4 shafts, you know, I'm happy.
Yeah, I've seen that in some of the stuff you've talked about, is that you don't have to have 8, 16, 24 to do some nice stuff. That piece right there is a great example of that. Great example of that. So what do you think you would be doing if you hadn't been surrounded by looms and fiber? Where do you think you would have gone?
Hindsight says if I could go back to being, you know, a teenager again, I think always thought I'd go to med school. The only thing is that I was treated for cancer in 2009 and realized nobody ever wants to see a doctor, you know, and people kind of go, hey, I'm looking forward to the workshops. So I don't think I would have been happy going into medicine. Had I not had fiber arts, wow, it would have had to have been something creative. I mean, even though I had my foray into corporate America and I served time for nearly 20 years, I was still weaving. I just found that producing something, creating something, having that diversion from meetings and corporate speak and feeling like you lived in a Dilbert cartoon day in and day out, that creating was really something. And, you know, if I could have gotten away with it, I think I would love to have been a comedian, because I love to make people laugh. You know, there's just, you know, to sit here and kind of lighten and brighten someone's day is about the best thing in the world.
There's a great picture of you on the internet, just leaning back and laughing for all it's worth. And I thought, I bet that was at a workshop. I bet that was at a workshop.
Yeah, I saw a picture of myself in a workshop just yesterday, and I'm looking at this picture and I'm going, wow, that looks kind of like me. And then I went, oh, it is me. And I'm laughing, I'm smiling, laughing.
So what's next for you? What's next? New book, next workshop? We know you're going to be at Convergence. How many classes are you teaching at Convergence? 4, 3,
6, 7?
6?
Yeah, if there's a time slot, I have a 2-day workshop, 2 one-day workshops, 3 super seminars. The jurors speak. I do twice for the yardage. And then that's after I teach at Complex Weavers. So, you know, that's just, and Heddlecraft is sponsoring Twilight Madness in the vendor hall, and it is going to be charming. And so you got to come and see what that's all about. I have a few books in the work. I'm turning my my probably most popular workshop, Extreme Warp Makeover, into a book. I was hoping to have it out this year. It'll be out next year. And then I'm working on some other books. I'm working on a passementerie book that sort of pulls together the monographs you saw earlier and adds to it and makes it bigger and goes into even more techniques. And then I'm in the early stages of working on a lace weaves book, a tide weaves book, and there's some other things that I think, I don't know, I think, you know, might be filling some voids or updating what we've got out there already. So, you know, I just, for the most part, I just love what I'm doing now. And I like to think, for anybody that's familiar with Harry Potter, that if I always like to think, if I looked in the mirror of Erised, which was to show you your deepest desire, and Dumbledore tells Harry Potter that the person that was sort of most content in their life would look in their mirror and see themselves as they were. I really think I would look in the mirror of Erised and see my life as it is. And just because it is so fun. It is so great. The idea that I get to spend my time in the company of weavers and the world is opening back up. Wow. I mean, talk about, you know, making me feel like this is just the best thing in the world. So teaching more, I'm looking to recruit more people to write for Heddlecraft. So I've got 2 more guest authors coming up this year. So it's the thing with Heddlecraft is you have to be willing to do the samples and the writing. And I've had a number of people I've approached that said, I want to do the samples, but I don't like writing. And I went, well, okay, think about it. But just, yeah, more of the same. So there's never a dull moment.
Robyn, you get more done in a day than I do in a lifetime. It's amazing. You're truly amazing. Well, you know what? We have questions. Let's go look at the questions. How's that?
All right, let me put my glasses on.
Okay. Mary Beardmore. Sorry, Mary. Oh, she wants the blueberry tea recipe.
Oh. Black tea, cup of black tea. So 8 ounces of black tea. So Earl Grey, orange pekoe, whatever you've got. And then you add to it 1 ounce of amaretto and 1 ounce of Grand Marnier. And it literally smells like blueberries. It is one of the most magnificent aromas. And I just feel like life is good.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
So 1, 1, and 1.
Yes.
1 cup, 1 ounce, 1 ounce.
Yep.
There you go. All right. Barbara, Barbara Carbajal. I'm probably pronouncing that badly. What a collection of shuttles. Oh, your
Oh.
screen behind you.
Yes.
Do you collect these? And is there something special for you when you look for them? Are you looking for a special thing or?
These are some of the shuttles that I have. I took a picture. The picture I had before was not of my studio, so I thought I'd put up a picture of something in my studio. So this is the pegboard that I hang my shuttles. I usually am drawn to shuttles that have really cool wood.
Yeah.
And so like the KCL shuttles that have, I just got one recently that was like mango and koa. And these are like works of art and they're finished like fine furniture. And then, Shack is the key temptress when it comes to shuttles because they'll come up with, layering the wood in different colors or coming up with a design of some kind. So I just find that I love my shuttles. I love matching them to what I'm weaving and just have a lot of joy with them.
Yeah, I think Convergence is a great place to shuttle shop.
Absolutely.
My husband's like, why do you need another shuttle? It's like, because it's pretty. I like it.
To me, it's like soul food. Why do you need another? Well, my husband would say, why do you need another? I went, okay, have you seen the 16 oil cans you have on the wall? How many oil cans does one really need? And so it's, we all have those things that just kind of feed us and makes us feel good. And so weaving with wonderful tools and yarns just adds to the joy of what we do.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Charlotte Switzer wants to know, is the Bateman collection for 4-shaft weaving or more shafts?
Bateman was from 4 to 8.
Okay.
There's a lot of 4 in there. Everything Dr. Bateman did was on 8 shafts. There was one set of samples that when we were working on the book, found out that he had used pickup techniques, and we kept it in the book and transformed the samples into like 2 14 and 1 15 shaft sample. But yes, there are some 4 in there. There's 5, 6, 7, 8. Everything he did was on a table loom. So there is one set of samples.
Really?
Yeah, everything he did was on
Wow.
a table loom, which is why one of the samples, because we converted everything to a floor loom. So it has a tie-up treadling. And we have one that requires 58 treadles. And that's one of the beauties of 8-shaft is because there's 254 possible ways to tie a treadle on an 8-shaft loom. So 58, you still had, nearly 200 more to go. So that's, if you have a table loom, sometimes that's a great way of really being able to experiment without worrying about treadle limitations.
I never knew that. 200 and some odd. Oh my gosh. Eileen Van Bronkhorst said, hi, Robyn. So
Hello.
good to see you here. I've been using the small inkle loom I got from you years ago. I think it was the prototype for the Shack inkle loom. Thank you. So you got a shout out there.
Ashford.
Oh, it was
Richard,
Ashford.
Yeah, Ashford. Richard, I designed a small inkle loom. My husband built them and we ended up doing about 32 of them. No, we did more than that. And we didn't really want to get into loom production. So I talked to Richard Ashford at Convergence in Denver, and that's where we started working on the development of the Ashford Inklet, which is the little inkle loom that Ashford does now. So, and I got to name it.
That's good.
The inklet is the weaver. It's for the weaver on the go. And that was sort of out of my love of inkle weaving, which so much is possible on a simple warp-faced plain weave band. And it doesn't have to be warp-faced plain weave. There's many, many things you can do beyond that.
Now, do you teach inkle?
I have. I kind of scaled back on what's available on my website, but just for sanity, because it was so big and people would have a tough time figuring it out. But I am next year at MAFA teaching a workshop I haven't taught in probably 10 years called Pictures Piled Potpourri and Perplexing Curiosities, which was, they were looking for something for intermediate to advanced weavers. So this is everything from velvet and Beidervon to swivel to bead lino. It's just a smorgasbord of weave structures to sort of have this like amuse bouche again and again to sort of tempt your taste buds.
That's a title and a half. Julia McClure wants to know where she can get the books on trims and passementerie.
You can order them directly from me. I do offer them in print, but I also now offer them as a digital version for $10, so which is about half the price plus no shipping. So if you go to my website, spadystudios.com, and go into publications, you can order it from there.
Deanna Johnson says, speaking of laughing, I love your column titles in Heddlecraft. They are so funny and clever. Do you come up those while partying with the other weavers?
No, years ago, a group of us were sitting around talking about, if we wrote our autobiography, what do we think would be a title of it? And I remember thinking the title of my autobiography would be Laughing at Midnight, because I'm often up late, I'm by myself, and I just think there are things just are hysterical. And some of that just hangs on, and it's still funny, I think, the next day. So like the next issue of Heddlecraft is on color, but the name of it is Color and the Taming of the Hue, and playing off of Shakespeare's The Taming of the Shrew, which is another class I'm teaching at Convergence. And so, yeah, I crack myself up. I laugh in the shower. I just kind of laugh all the time. I just find irony in the world. And I think it's trying to look on the lighter side of life sometimes.
Well, you've started something with your tea. Nancy Reach wants to know, do you drink the tea hot, room temperature, or iced?
Hot. Yeah.
Hot?
Hot, and you have to make the decision. Now, the critical decision is, are you going to drink it in a mug, or are you going to drink it in a brandy snifter? And I recommend a brandy snifter because you get that aroma kind of going around your nose, but either works well. And you might just want to try it at least once each way, and see which one you prefer.
That's going to be your new calling. You're going to become a bartender and create new drinks. There you
Maybe
go.
I should just add a feature to Heddlecraft, kind of like, the drink of the issue. And
That's right.
cocktails, the happy weaver.
Sharon Waddell says she lives in Vancouver, Canada. Do you ever come to Canada to teach?
I was scheduled to teach in Canada not long after COVID hit. So yes, I do when I'm invited and when I believe I can get into the country and out of the country. So I can get home.
Is there a hobby Heddlecraft issue that shows the pattern for the integrated double weave?
Yes, the issue November, December 2018 is dedicated to overshot pattern double weave.
Okay.
And the black and white one that you saw, you start with an overshot threading. That overshot threading was a name draft I did that was Convergence 2008 Tampa, Florida. And I did it, I was going through a black and white phase at the time. I don't know if that might have been in the issue, but the issue, the November, December 2018 issue is dedicated to overshot pattern double weave. I did kind of pump up the volume and did show how to extend it onto 8 shafts. But I walk through the process of take an overshot threading, and this is how you transform it.
Michael Menard says, I know you love 4 shafts, but do you ever work on COE-W looms? If so, what equipment do you use? Any advice for people looking for their first COE-W? Number of shafts, best manufacturers?
I have in my studio, I have 4 looms going at all times. I have 2 baby wolves, 8 shaft baby wolves. One has a combi on it, which those are a little tricky to find. And that interfaces with the Mac. And then I have 2 AVLs. The AVL probably, if somebody asked me a little over a week ago, if you had to get rid of all your looms but one, what would you hold on to? And it would be my 40-inch folding Dobby AVL loom. They still make them. It has a small footprint. It's a 40-inch weaving width, has 16 shafts. It has a COE-W on it. And I went from basically 4 shaft counterbalance weaving to this 16 shaft AVL. It was my 40th birthday present to myself, and I'm about to turn 62. So I've had it for over 20 years. and just absolutely love it. And then I also have a 24 shaft studio AVL studio loom, which is a small loom that's kind of stout. They were designed for universities and sampling. But there's a number of different looms. I like the AVLs. I've had very good luck and very good experience with both of them.
Jennifer Hines wants to know, is the Bateman book still available? She didn't see it on your website.
It's not on my website because it's not my book. I only help write it. The book really belongs to the Seattle Weavers Guild, but you can get the book through Amazon. It's still available. One of the beauties about Schiffer is books don't go out of print. They just print more books. So it will probably be a convergence. You can order it directly from Schiffer, but you can get it via Amazon.
Fazia Rizvi.
Hello.
Fazia, she always has the best questions.
Yes.
Do you keep detailed records of the weaving you experiment with? And if so, what do you recommend to new weavers about keeping good notes and making records of our experiments and play? Oh, there you go, Fazia. You made her mad. Now she's leaving.
No, I'll show you. Each loom I have has a warp log. So this is my warp log. I just happen to have it over there. It has my warp log for my 16 shaft AVL. And there's the thumb drive that I use for that Dobby. And so for each warp, it's been dated. So this is November 20th, November 26th, 2021. So that's the day I finished threading the loom. And then I literally have everything I've woven on it described. What was the WIF file? I find that's a huge one because if you're like me and you have thousands of WIF files, where is it? And I can sit here and make notes about what did I warp it at, what did I thread, dislay it at, anything unusual, and then I can write down my observations. I can make, here I am, little pictures. And so I just literally have a warp log for each loom. And when that fills up, then I move on to volume 2. And this is just my little composition notebook. And, I just have pages and pages. Sometimes I'll even put in, I have a couple of these where I do a lot with different yarns. And so there will be a little piece of the yarn on there with a description of what was the yarn, how heavy was it, how many yards per ounce or something. So I think that is really, really helpful to write it down while you're doing it and just have a notebook at each loom.
Oh, that's a great idea. That's kind of come a different direction. That's wonderful. That could be another book. You could come up with a workbook for people that organize them. There you go. Something else you can do. Hey, Sue, perhaps the article titles come from result of the specialty. I think she's referring back to the, someone commented they liked your articles in Heddlecraft. As you move toward the hobbyist, what things do you consider to price your handwovens? Oh, okay.
What do I about pricing?
Yes.
First, it's got to be enough that I'm willing to part with it. So I've used different guidelines over the years. So like for dish towels, my dish towels, the last ones I sold, again, this was to an interior designer, went for $65 a piece. I didn't want to get rid of them. And I thought, if I'm getting rid of them, she wanted the 8 that I wove. It was a beautiful Egyptian cotton that was, I just can't afford it anymore. But it's got to really be worth my while. So I only weave what I want. I don't do commissions. I did back in 1979, 1980, did work with an interior designer for a while doing some custom fabric. But it takes some of the joy out of it. Mm-hmm. And when you're doing custom work, and there was once that I threaded the loom and the customer changed their mind. And when you're halfway done weaving fabric and they said, oh, I've decided I want a little stripe of blue going through it. I'm thinking, no, So I think with, custom work, you have about a 50-50 chance at best of things going well. But pricing it is, usually people are asking too little. And there's also this confidence that we need to have. So if somebody says, well, how much is this scarf? And you go, 85, what do you think? Are you confident in spending that kind of money? And the parallel I make is if you were on a car lot and you said, how much is this car? And the salesman looked at you and said, 40 grand. Are you going to go, yes, I'll give you 40 grand. So I think this is what the price is. And I've had some people that just, well, that's ridiculous. And you go, well, that's what it is. And there's things in the world that I know, I've never spent more than $30 on a pair of jeans. I have friends that spend hundreds of dollars on a pair of jeans. If anybody was ever into Swatch watches, I mean, good God, it's a plastic watch and you spent how much on it? But boy, give me a great dish towel or a really fabulous shuttle. Yeah, sign me up. So I think the first thing is basically elevate the prices. You need outstanding quality in your work. And don't budge. I mean, not everybody's our customer. My mother-in-law, I think until the day she died, thought I price gouged when it came to dish towels because, well, you can get them for a few dollars at Kmart. And one day I was at her house and she said, look what I got. And she was holding up what looked like a part of a handkerchief. And I went, what is that? She goes, look what I got. And I'm trying to look at it. Okay. She goes, it was only $65. And it was this little thing. It was a dollhouse bedspread. And she was thrilled. And it was a beautifully handmade bedspread for a dollhouse bed. And I'm thinking she's happy spending $65 on this little piece of fabric. And I'm doing something that's much bigger for half the price. So she just wasn't the customer for a hand woven dish towel. I kept thinking, I think dollhouses, boy, if you start getting into that world, she took a whole bunch of leftover ankle bands that I had, small ones. And because I was just going to throw them out because they were like 1/2 inch to 2 inches long. She said, can I have them? Sure. And she cut them up, frayed the edges and took them to a dollhouse show and sold them as miniature rugs and was selling them for anywhere from $5 to $8 a piece. And we're talking about something that took less than a minute to weave. So it gave me ideas for other markets that I think are untapped.
I like that. I like that idea that they're just not your market. They're just not your buyers. That's excellent. That's a really good way of looking at it.
They're out there. These people are out there and you don't need to look close to them. But I think right now, if we can say it's handmade, local craftsman, one of a kind, I numbered everything. And even if I really liked a pattern or had a yarn and I did 5, it was labeled 1 of 5. I mean, these were a limited edition. And so since I had written everything down, they were cataloged. And people like that unique quality. They don't want to look like somebody's walked into their house and could find that same thing in a Pottery Barn catalog or something.
Right.
Not that anything wrong with Pottery Barn, but.
Well, I can't believe it's 5 o'clock and we have to stop for the day. Robyn, I can't thank you enough for being here today. It was so wonderful that you shared your work and your ideas and your shuttles. Thank you so much for joining us. And I encourage everybody to go to Robyn's websites. Go to spadystudio.com. There's all kinds of information about her work, her classes. If those of you who are talking about taking her class, there's information there also. You can also learn more about her online magazine, her e-magazine, I should say, I guess, Heddlecraft.com. Be sure you check that out also. Again, she'll be at Convergence teaching. There's still some spaces in some of her classes. I encourage you to go take a look and sign up for that. I do want to thank our sponsor, which is the Weaving Guild of Boston. Again, 100 years old. And they've got some incredible events coming up this year. It's wonderful. Here are two of them. They're going to do two different exhibits. One's at the Charles River Museum. The other one is at the Fuller-Craft Museum. Please go to their website and check out all the things that they're doing this year to celebrate. And it's the Weavers Guild of Boston.org. If you would like to be a sponsor of Textiles and Tea, or your business or your guild, please go to our website at weavespendie.org and learn more about being a sponsor. If you would like to see more programming like Textiles and Tea, or the Guild Retreat, or the other events that we've had and some more that are coming up, please go to our website at weavespendie.org and support HGA by donating to the Fiber Trust or joining, or both. We'd appreciate your support to keep these kind of programmings continuing. If you missed any of the episodes, you can see them on the Facebook page, HGA's Facebook page. You do not have to have an account. You don't have to be a member. You can join and watch HGA Facebook page and see all the past issues. Some of them are also being put up on YouTube. I encourage you to subscribe. Then you'll get a notice when a new episode has been put on YouTube. We've got some marketplace events coming up. We've been talking about convergence. It's just a few months away. I cannot believe it. We've got the demonstration stage. A lot of our vendors will be there showing their materials. We look forward to having those folks up there. We're Strut Your Stuff fashion show. You don't have to sign up ahead of time. You sign up for that when you get there. So bring all those wonderful things you've been working on for the last 4 years and bring them to the convergence marketplace, and you can sign up for Strut Your Stuff. We also have the shuttle race. We will have sheep to shawl. If you're thinking about putting together a sheep to shawl team, please sign up for that. We'd love to have you there. It's so much fun. And just a reminder that all of that is available along with all of our vendors for a day pass, which is only $10, and it's free with your CVP. We've got some new events coming up. We've got some of our leaders from Convergence will be doing Zoom programs to talk about their classes. These are the dates that they will be presenting. We'll have 5 or 6 different teachers talking on each session about their class, and you can learn more about this also at our website. Next week, we have Tommy Scanlon, another big hitter. We really appreciate Robyn being here today. Thank you so much, Robyn. We look forward to seeing you at Convergence, and I hope you all have a great week. Happy tea.